Hello everyone! Thank you so much for coming to Graphics' first ever Clip Studio Paint workshop. We have partnered up with the amazing WEBTOON team to share with you how to create WEBTOON from start to finish. 6 artists will present across the 2-day event. Each artist will cover a different topic on WEBTOON creation. We're really excited to learn with you. I'm your host for this session, Mario Quiñones. Before we start, we have some housekeeping items to go through. This session will be approximately 60 minutes long. Use the link in pinned message in chat to ask questions. Due to time constraints, not all questions will be answered. Please respect the presenters during the sessions and only self-promote and exchange social media info during commercials. All sessions will be uploaded to YouTube later on. This workshop is brought to you by Graphics', the official distributor of Clip Studio Paint in North America, South America, and Europe. We can't do this without our amazing sponsors Clip Studio Paint, WEBTOON, and Wacom. Clip Studio Paint is the leading app with all the features you need to create your comic series ready to be published on WEBTOON Canvas. WEBTOON is one of the largest digital comics platforms in the world, with over 75 million monthly readers. WEBTOON Canvas is the side of our platform where any artist can post on their webcomic. Wacom is the global leader in the pen display and tablet market for creative users. As a technology company, they provide cutting-edge digital ink solutions for a wide range of partners using and producing smartphones, tablets, and digital stationery. For the 5th session, we have Inma Pollito to show us how to add flair to a page. Inma is the creator of The Violinist and the Nerd. She's a full-time artist with over 10 years of experience. Not only is her art beautiful and versatile, she has many tips on speeding up the workflow. In this session, Inma will show you how she uses Clip Studio Paint materials and tools effectively to decorate your panel. Now, I'll pass the session to Inma. Thank you so much.
Hi everyone, thank you very much for coming. I'm Inma, the artist, the author of The Violinist and the Nerd. And as you know, I'm a freelance artist and I have a full-time job as an artist, but I can only work on my comic on my free time, which is why many of my tips are about getting the best results possible in as little time as possible, because otherwise I cannot update once a week. So that's why I try to find ways to do to get nice results with as little effort as possible. So anyway, this is my webcomic. If you want to read it, The Violinist and the Nerd, there are many chapters up. And season 1 of The Violinist and the Nerd was black and white, and season 2 is full color. So for this session, I'm going to do, the first half is going to be about making black and white comic, and the second half is going to be about color comic. So we will stop at the middle so that you can ask questions about the first part, the black and white one, and at the end you can also ask questions about the full color part. So before we start, I told you that one of my main problems is time, and that I'm trying to do as much as I can in as little time as possible. So one thing that I recommend is that you create auto actions for all the stuff that you do a lot when you are drawing. For example, something as small as creating a layer in multiply blending mode to shade. I have an auto action for that. I just click one button and I get one layer called shadow in multiply blending mode. This creating this one is just 3 steps, but there are many other processes that I go through when making comics and illustrations in general that require more time, and the more you can simplify your task, the better. There's also the quick access window here where I put all the brushes that I use the most, because I have them split between pens, pencils, watercolor brushes, etc. But I want to access them as quickly as possible, so I put them here. Okay, next topic. Before we start with the black and white part, I would like to explain, give just one reason why I ink in vector layers, because this is going to be important for later. You will see why. The good part of a vector layer is that using the operation tool, you can change the brush shape to anything you want. For example, we have, this is a pencil brush, and we can turn this to like a G pen. You can make it any shape that you want, and you can also change how thick the line art is, etc. This is going to be useful later, and you can register any brush tip to appear here on the list. As you can see, I have a lot more than the ones that come with the software, and it's very easy. It's a very easy process. Just select the brush you want to register here, and you click to show the subtool details. You go to brush shape, and you click on add to presets, and then it will appear on the list. That said, I'm going to close this, and we are going to start with the black and white part. I have two panels here, and I'm going to make the first one for the black and white part and the second one for the color part. Let's see. For black and white, make sure to have at least 600 dpi, because otherwise screen tones will not look so good. I mean, don't make it lower. You can make it higher if you want, but not lower. So the first thing I do is my sketch. I lower the opacity to 5. And then I would create a new layer to ink. Let's select black and white as the color. And I ink with G pen. Don't worry about the inking being too perfect. Like, I like to have my inking with a lot of lines sometimes. It depends on your style. So I'm not going to ink the whole thing here because luckily I have already inked it. I just wanted to show you that I do this with G pen. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is to hide my sketch layer. And now I'm going to create a new layer under the liner, and I'm going to fill the black parts of the illustrations, which is the hair and some parts of the clothes. I'm going to use mapping pen because it's the brush that I feel most comfortable with to make big lines, because if you press harder, you get really thick lines. So I'm going to apply like some shading here under the hair. Then I use the bucket to fill the whole area. You can also do this with a quick mask, but right now I just decided to make it full black. But maybe it's easier to see what you're doing with a quick mask. In fact, I'm gonna do that. I start a quick mask. Now everything I paint is red. This is going to mark where the selection is going to be created. Okay, now I cancel the quick mask and a selection is created. All I have to do now is to go to Edit and Fill. Now I deselect. Okay, I have these black parts, but this is too black for me. I like to have this textured a bit. So what I'm going to do is to right-click on this layer, selection from layer, create selection. Now I'm going to hide this layer. I'm going to create a new one. And now I'm going to use brushes to fill the area with some texture. Let's see here. I have a lot of brushes to do this. And I usually leave the original name of the brush. But since I have so many brushes that I downloaded, when there is one that I really like, I add good at the beginning of the name. If you want to change the name of a brush, just right-click on it, setting of subtool, and you can edit the name here. So I'm going to use this one, and I'm going to paint with it. See, with this, you get textured black areas, which to me look nicer than pure black. You can have some parts with pure black, but it's good to have like different kinds of textures. And you can download many different brushes to do this. Okay, now I'm going to add screen tones to these black parts. I'm going to deselect, and I want to create a new selection for the hair and the clothes. So I'm going to start with another quick mask. Because my line art is not perfect, it always has open spots that I have to fix manually, which is a pain, but there's nothing that can be done. If you wonder why I can apply the bucket and it's not taking the texture into account, it's because I have set my line art as the reference layer, and my bucket only takes into account the reference layer. So it's as if this layer here doesn't exist. That is a very useful trick to fill areas. Also, a little trick to go faster. I have on the one of the buttons from my pen, I applied the key C from the keyboard, and that makes it change from main color to transparent color. So that's very useful to erase whenever you want to, without having to go all the way to select the transparent color. Okay, now I cancel the quick mask and I have a selection of all these. Now I'm going to apply a gradation, but before I do that, just in case I need this selection later, I'm going to convert the selection to a layer. Now it turns green, I can just hide it, but each time that I double click here, the selection will be created again. That way you can select other parts and you can always get this one back. So I'm going to apply a gradation here. Now I deselect. And now I'm going to give this gradation some texture as well. And I do that by selecting some special brushes from here. For example, this one I really like. Then I select the transparent color and you can remove parts of it to get nice effects. This is for the dark parts, but I like to shade with softer screen tones. So to do that, I'm going to create another quick mask. And I'm going to shade the white clothes and parts of the skin. Once I'm done, I cancel the quick mask and a selection is created. Now I go to layer, new layer, tone, and the parameters that I like to have is 70 for frequency and 20 for density. This to me is the best screen tone for shading white parts. Also, you can change it on the layer property menu. You can make it lighter or you can make it darker manually. Okay, so if you apply this screen tone, which is plain, but you want to turn it into a gradation, you can do so with the operation tool. Here you can see, here's the gradient, and you can select the direction. This is where the white part is, and this is where the gray part starts. So depending on the effect you want to achieve, you can move this around. But for now, I'm going to leave it as plain tones. Just one little trick that I like to do to get a fluffy effect is to add screen tones around the edges of the liner. I do this with mapping pen and do most of the work with mapping pen actually. So when you do it like this, get some parts with screen tones, it gives a very fluffy effect that I really like. And then you can make a new layer on top of the liner and add some white spots. So let's suppose that I finish this character. Now I want to add a background. The first thing I'm going to do, because this area is not actually filled, if I create a new layer under all the other layers and I draw, see, it goes, you can see it. So what I'm going to do is to create a layer mask that only shows the parts that I want to show. For example, I'm going to do this with a quick mask again. I want to select the area for the background. So I just fill with the bucket and I cancel the quick mask. And now I put this layer that I created, I put it into a folder and I apply a layer mask to this folder. Now everything, all the layers I put inside, if I draw, as you can see, they go behind the characters because of this quick mask. Not quick mask, sorry, layer mask. So for the backgrounds, I'm going to use 3D objects. I have everything ordered here for backgrounds, small objects, etc. By default, you get the program orders this for you, but as you start downloading more and more stuff, it's best if you create your own categories and such. I'm going to use this one. This 3D object comes with the software, so you should have it. I'm dragging it into the panel. It goes up to the top layer, but I want to put it inside my folder for the background. See, now it's behind. Now using this, I'm going to put it into the angle and size that I need. For example, like this. You can change a lot of parameters here, like perspective. You can roll the object a bit, but for now I'm going to leave it like this. So now I right-click on this layer and I click on the Convert to Lines and Tones function. But this function is only for the X version of Clip Studio Paint. I think it's not available on the Pro version. I click on Preview. I make sure that the Lineart is set to raster, even though I'm going to turn it into vector later, but I get better results like this. Here I have two sets of tones. The first one is the 20, and this is the same tone as the shading for the skin and such. And I'm going to lower it a bit so that not everything is shading. Okay, like this. And the second one, it doesn't matter the number. It's just going to make it darker, but I'm going to hide it later because there's something that I want to show you with this. Okay, like this. Then I click OK. And I get screen tones and Lineart. This is what I do now. First, I'm going to hide the screen tones because I want to see the Lineart properly. I click on the Lineart layer, right-click, and convert layer, and I change it to vector now. I could have chosen vector before, but it gives me better results. Now I want to change the shape of the Lineart because it's very cold, like it's not hand-drawn, and I want it to look like it was hand-drawn. So I choose one of these brush shapes that I downloaded from Asset. Let's choose this one, for example. This one is, it's like the most hand-drawn effect you can get. Maybe a bit too much, but just for the sake of showing you. The Lineart looks really thin because it's a different shape, but I can make it bigger here. Let's see. Let's try out with 40. Okay, look, okay. See, now the lines are all wobbly and they don't look so cold anymore. Now I enable the screen tone that I applied before. You can make it into a gradient like we did. For the other screen tone here, I'm not going to enable it, but I'm going to right-click on the layer mask, and I'm going to create a selection from it. What I do now is to create a new layer, and this is so that I can apply some shading with brushes, like I did for the hair and such. So I'm going to choose this. And I can do it with the same brush or some other. If you want to have like dark shading. Then you can remove parts of it with other brushes. And also you can use this selection to apply some texture you have. For example, I have here, I have these textures that I could apply just by dragging them. Or this one, etc. Because you can get a selection from here. You can apply anything you want, from brushes to screen tones and such, and get the effect that suits you better. And to finish this part, I go to the top layer and I'm going to add some particles. I have them here. This is just so that it looks prettier. Like, I like this one a lot. Just to add some mood to the funnel. This one is also very good. You can mix them. You can also make them into a new layer in case you want to remove them later. And that would be it for the black and white part. So if you have any question regarding this this section, you can do it now.
Okay. Well, there are so many questions, Inma. So we'll actually go from the most general to the most specific ones. So the most popular is, what other things do you do to balance your time? How to deal with school, work, or other stuff?
Well, my main job as an illustrator consists on getting an illustration done each day, or a certain number of sketches done. So once I'm done with that, I try to rest my eyes a bit, and then I work on my comic as much as I can, and I work on my comic on my free days. So basically, I draw 7 days a week, which I'm not sure is so healthy, actually.
But you enjoy your work, right?
Yes. This is the thing, is that drawing comics could be considered a job, but for me, it's my hobby. Even if I wasn't paid for this, I would still do it because I like telling stories.
Mm-hmm.
But you still need to sleep, and you need to take care of your eyes, because staring at the screen for so long is not so healthy.
Mm-hmm. All right. And well, here are some other questions more related to webtoons. For a webtoon, is it better to do black and white or color comic? Why did you transition to color? Is it easier?
Okay, I really like black and white, and that's why I started doing it this way, because I also thought black and white is going to be easier. So it's going to take less time, and I can't afford to take longer, so this is going to be it. But on each chapter, there are a lot of comments saying, please add color, please add color.
Mm-hmm.
So I think in general, people are not so used to reading comics in black and white on Webtoon. And in the end, I thought, okay, for season 2, I have to switch to color. And I was really scared because of my time issues, because I didn't know it was going to take longer for sure. So, but in the end, I found some ways to make it almost as fast as black and white. And I'm very happy with it, with my workflow. So I'm going to show you that next.
Awesome. Here's another question. How would you determine which part of the lines should be thicker or thinner, or more emphasized or not? What's your criteria?
for example, one of my criteria is that if that part of the line art is projecting shadow, for example, here on the hair, if this is projecting shadow, then I'm going to make this part thicker, and this part is going to be thinner. Then when there is like protuberance, I also like to either make it thicker or add several lines to mark this part. But overall, I think it's pretty much intuition, I think. But you can follow those little tricks if you can't decide.
Right. And
Also,
another question.
sorry.
Oh, sorry.
I
Continue, please.
have something to add to that question. There is this tool on Clip Studio Paint where you can narrow or thicken parts of the line art. You can use it after you are done inking. See, for example, I'm applying it here. I'm getting this part thicker. And then if I want to make it thinner, to narrow it, so you can play with that and see how it looks.
And do you also like to work more in vector or traditional layers?
I only do the line art in vector, and I never do the line art in traditional layers anymore because vector has so many good options for line art, like changing the shape or erasing with just one click. For example, here, I can erase this whole line just by clicking on it. You can do that with normal layers. And also you can move lines around. See, you can't do that with normal layers either. But to shade and for everything else, to color, etc., I only use normal layers, not vector.
Awesome. And do you think this feature helped you to make your process even faster for producing your comics?
Sorry, I don't understand the question.
If by working with vector layers, your workflow is even faster?
Well, it is faster on the color version of the comic, and later I will show you why. On black and white, it's not necessarily faster. It's just better, I think, because it gives me more options to play with than, for example, when I'm drawing a line, if I got it wrong, I can move it instead of deleting it. So this helps me get a faster results.
Awesome. And well, Inma, here's another question. How do you manage transitioning from traditional to digital art?
That's a good question because I was never good at traditional.
Really?
When I was little, yeah, I never got any good results with traditional art. I started with digital very soon, even though my teachers always told me that I shouldn't do digital art because it's cheating. Well, if they think so. Because they say that the computer does everything for you, etc., and that's just a lie. As you can see, the computer is not doing it for me. I wish that it was true. But so yeah, I don't know because I started very soon with digital. But I would say that if you are transitioning from traditional to digital, definitely get a tablet with a screen. Like Wacom has tablets from small sizes like Wacom 1 or Wacom Cintiq 16 to big sizes like the one I'm using, which is 27 QHD. I think working with a screen will help you make it more similar to what you were doing before by looking at a piece of paper.
And here's another question. How do you choose the right shades and screen tones, especially for black and white panels?
I think just see the overall look of the panel and try to make a balance between shades and white. For me personally, I like mangas with very little shading. Like I like more black parts and full white parts. But yeah, if the whole thing is toned, then it's going to look a bit gray and just monotonous. I would recommend to check the mangas that you like, the authors that you like, and see how they apply screen tones. Like, do they apply many of them, or just a bit, or where? Try to get the same feeling with your comic. I'm not sure if that was a good answer. Sorry.
No, it was. Thank you. And one last question before we leave you with the next part of your presentation. Where do you get your screen tones and texture brushes? How do you organize them so that you can easily navigate?
Okay. I get them from Assets. Clip Studio Assets is the store where you can buy or download many brushes and screen tones for free. And the way I organize them is as this. Okay, as you see, I have many categories, a lot more categories than the ones that come with the software. For example, I have 2 categories for flowers, and one has the M before the name. This is so that I know the flowers here are for manga only, and the flowers here are for illustration. Yeah, because I have so many brushes. Like my Studio Paint size is over 20 gigabytes. Do you pronounce it like that? Just
Yeah.
in
Wow.
material, because yeah, I downloaded a lot because but sometimes it's true that some brushes are lost and you never use them again because you don't remember you have them. So that's why sometimes I add the good at the beginning of the name of the brush, so that whenever I see it, I'm reminded that that one is one brush that I want to use. And also for
Awesome.
screen tones and materials, you can add them to favorites, and they will appear here. So for example, I have these that I use a lot, and I add it here so that I can easily find them in this mess of tones and image materials that I have.
Oh, that's a great tip. And kids, be organized. So, Inma, we'll let you continue with your second part of your presentation. Thank you so much.
Okay, so I'm going to close this one, and I'm going to open the file for the color version, and I'm going to do the lower panel. I can't do it on the same file because the other one was 6000 dpi, and this one is 350 dpi because it's full color. And if you make it full color at 600 dpi, it's going to be the biggest file on earth, and you don't want that. So I start doing the same thing. I lower the opacity of my sketch layer to 5, and I create a new vector layer inside this panel. And now for color manga, I use this brush here, which I downloaded from Asset. And I have a set color that I use to ink, which is this one. This brush is a bit textured, like a pencil, you can see. And I really like the result it gives. I don't want to use G pen because that would make it a very cold for a color comic. So I use this one. And as before, I already inked it so that you don't have to see me go through the whole process because it's really boring. Like the question before, I make some parts darker where shadow is applied, like under the chin and such. Okay, Now I hide the sketch. And now I want to get my layer ready to color. So the first thing I do is to set it to multiply, because I want the line art to darken according to the color that is underneath. So I set it to multiply. I set it as reference because my bucket will only take into account the reference layer. And now, if I create a new layer here to start coloring, you will see, there are a lot of blank dots, a lot of things that should be fixed because the line art is textured. So what do I do to fasten the process? What I do is to duplicate the line art layer. I hide the previous one, and on this one I use the operation tool to change the shape to a normal pen, like G pen. And now I can easily use the bucket as before. I'm going to delete this and I'm going to start over again because I have all those white spots. By the way, I use dark green to apply base color because this is a color that I can see very well. This character is blonde, and if I tried to start coloring using the real color of his hair, I probably miss a lot of white or blank spaces because I can see well. Okay, so this is the hair. Now I go here where I have, this is just a view window where I have the color set of my character, and I pick the one for the hair. And I use the convert brightness, no, not this one, convert to drawing color, sorry, function, and I get the actual color. Now what I do to shade this is to create a new layer in multiply blending mode. I click on the clip to layer below icon, and to shade the hair, I have these two colors marked here with an S that means shadow, and I use this brush, which gives a watercolor effect. This. And I'm not detailing it much because I don't have time. So if I want to go fast, I have to do something quick, but that looks nice. You can also see what it's looking like with the real line art, which we will get later. Once I have this, I want to remove some parts with mapping pen to make it look more like hair. So add some locks of hair like this. Then I add some shadows with mapping pen here and there. And now I'm going to add a new layer on top in screen blending mode. As you can see, the layer created automatically because I have an auto action for that. And I use the same color as the hair to add some lighting. I also have some brushes that I use for the hair. This one. This one, I really like the shape of this one for light. So as you can see, you can shade the hair really fast and it doesn't look so bad even though it's not really detailed. We take back the bad liner, so to speak, because we are going to add the base color for the rest of the clothes. I'm using green again. New layer. And even though this jacket has different colors, to start, I paint everything on the same color. And then we will detail it more. I'm not gonna fix this completely so that I can go faster and show you all the steps that I wanted to show you, but yeah, more or less. So now I will choose the base color for this jacket, which is going to be, I think it was black. I change it here. And now I'm going to create new layers on top and applying the clip to layer below function. I can paint over the different parts with the colors that I choose. I want to give it to make this pink. Okay. Now I create a new layer, again with the clip to layer below icon selected, and I'm going to paint the white part. Okay, now it's time to shade the jacket. The easiest way would be to simply create a new layer in multiply blending mode and select some color and apply shadows with mapping pen. But I wanted to give my comic some sort of watercolor effect like the hair. So what I do, because painting with watercolor effects take a lot of time because you have to add the wrinkles and such. What I do is to make a fake watercolor effect the following way. I create a quick mask and I select the parts where I want to apply shadows. And sometimes I use blurring effects too, so that the border is not so thick. I don't think thick is the word, but so I draw over the parts where I want shading to apply. It doesn't matter if you paint outside here because the shading is going to be clipped to the layer below, so you will not paint outside the jacket. So don't worry about that. Okay, once I have this selection, I cancel the quick mask. And what I do is on this layer on multiply blending mode, I'm going to choose this watercolor brush and I'm going to paint over it. This way, I get more or less watercolor feeling, but in a very easy way, because you don't have to go around making the shape and such. You can detail some parts a bit more. And get some cool effects. Now, if, for example, if I wanted to change the color of the white parts, for example, I don't want the, I think right now it looks okay, but imagine that I want the white parts to have a blue shading. Then I would just create a selection from the white layer And on the shadow layer, I would change this here. See, now you get different colors for the shading. I'm going to paint over the rest of the layers real quick, but I will not shade them because I just want to cover this area so that it will not bother me for the background. I have some colors saved here, the ones that I used a lot for different reasons. Okay, so let's suppose that I have my character already painted and now I want to apply a background. This time I don't need to make the layer mask because I'm going to put the background layer under all these color layers. So these layers are going to cover the background. I'm going to go to get the same background as before. Here, I drag and drop it into my panel and I put it right under all the layers. Now I move it until I'm happy with the angle and such. Right click, convert to lines and tones, preview. And here the numbers don't matter, but I like to have two different types of tones. I'm going to make this over the whole area, and this one will be for shading here. Now I'm going to get screen tones, but obviously I don't use screen tones on color manga. So I'm just going to hide those. Now the line art is on black and white only, so I need to convert this layer to color and to vector. Once it is vector, first I want to turn it into this color. And then using the operation tool, I'm going to change the shape. But this time, instead of using a line art like before, I want to make it look like pencil so that it fits the line art of the character, which I forgot to turn to the actual line art. Give it a second. Sometimes it takes a bit to load because I think this takes a lot of memory. It will change eventually. Okay, now I'm going to put the character with the correct line art. Okay, so now the line art is pencil-like. And now it's time to color the background. And what I do is first I create a selection from the first screen tone. And I create a new layer. I select this bluish color that I have. And using this brush, I just paint over it randomly. Now I'm going to create a selection from the second screen tone. I create a new layer on top on multiply blending mode. I select purple. And now I'm going to shade. This makes making backgrounds very easy and it looks nice. And when the 3D object has color, like is the case here, I just drag the layer and I set the blending mode to color or to hue. So you get different colors for the background. To finish this, I like to apply a Lineart color. So I have an auto action for that. I select the Lineart layer and I click here. And now it will take into account all the colors underneath. Sorry. Once I've done this, I like to create a new layer on top to add some eyelashes with mapping pen. You can also add lights to the eye. And the last steps that I do here, one is to create a gradation map so that all the colors fit more or less. So I go here to layer, new correction layer, gradient map, and I choose one of these. I like this one very much. I apply it, but of course I can't leave it like this. So I just lower the opacity to 13, for example, looks good. And then what I do is to apply a texture because I want my comic to have a unified look with this texture. This is a Copic texture that I downloaded from assets. So I drag it on top. I make the blending mode overlay. I lower the opacity to 60 and also make it a bit smaller than it is here. And this is the look of my comic. Now you can add some extra details like making a new layer on screen blending mode and have some, with the airbrush, you can make some lights here and there, or you can have sparkles, for example, etc. And that would be it. So if you have questions, again, this is the time to ask them. I hope you found this useful.
Yes, very useful. You have no idea. People is doing some comments on the chat, and we really enjoyed your presentation, Inma. And yeah, let's do a round of questions. This is the most popular so far. How did you find your own way of drawing features and rendering and coloring? How did you manage to get your own style?
I think my style is the sum of the things I liked from other artists, actually. So, for example, I really like the way an artist draws eyelashes or the way they color them. So I learned something from that and then apply it to the whole chimera that is my style. In the end, it's not about copying, but about learning from others and just creating it yourself. When it goes through your own filter, in the end, you are going to have your own style unless you really try to copy someone else. But I think just learning little things from each different person will give you something new that you can create.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And do you have any artists that you could reference to that inspire you?
I have so many. Well, for example, I really admire my friend. She's a friend of mine, so it's awesome.
Yeah.
Eropinku, who also has a webtoon called Found by Death. It just started. I totally recommend that you go check it. Also, I really like artists like Dia Smile, Yuna Yamamai, Kyoto Animation. I also really like their style. There are so many. My room is full of art books and posters from the artists that I like.
Yeah, we can imagine. Okay, so Mark Diaz is asking, how do you draw characters in any angle?
Some angles are really hard to draw. For the most part, I'm used to drawing in general. The more you draw, the easier it becomes to draw certain angles. But some are still very hard for me because I don't usually draw characters from those angles. So for those, you have 3D poses and 3D characters that you can use. For example, you drag this character here and you want to draw in this angle. Well, you can do it using this as reference. This is an angle that's not normal, so it might be a bit hard. It's hard for me to. It's normal for it to be hard. So, but Clip Studio Paint has so many nice options like the 3D characters, and you can even change the shape of this character here. You can change the height and just everything. So, and you can also download more models from assets to fit your own character.
And this is a question from our previous session, but do you think using 3D models is cheating?
No. Why would it be cheating? It's like some artists, for example, some artists take photos of their own hands when they want to draw a specific pose if they don't know how to do it. Is that cheating? I don't think so. It's just because in the end, once you start using 3D models, you will realize that the job is not done for you. It's still pretty hard, and you still have to draw an actual character there. You have to draw the hair. You have to make the face look like your character and not just a random 3D model that doesn't even have a face. So no, it's not cheating. That's like the teacher that told me that drawing digital was cheating. It
Exactly.
isn't. Yeah.
And Pau asks, for you, how much detail is too much detail in each character and background?
Well,
do you have like a moment when you think, okay, I'm done with this?
For the most part, I try. I have a page in front of me, and I have a mental deadline for that page. So too much is when I think I'm not gonna do it within the time frame that I have. Right. So I try to keep my pages simple. As if you see my comic, you will see the coloring is pretty simple. But I'm keeping it that way on purpose because it's not I can't do better. I think I can do better. I've done that with illustrations. But I just don't want to spend a lot of time on something that people will see in the blink of an eye, literally. And they just want more content. I think so long as you keep a good quality, you don't have to add too much detail if time is a problem for you.
And Sasha asks, how do you pick your colors for your characters? When I pick colors, it always looks muddy and dull. Do you have like a palette? Is there like a color preference for your characters?
I don't really have a technique to choose color. In fact, I think I kind of have the same problem that my colors tend to look a bit dull. But there's something that you can do on Clip Studio Paint. For example, let's say that I choose this color scheme for a character and I think it looks dull. Then you can go to New Correction Layer, Hue, Saturation, Luminosity, and you can add more saturation to the colors. You can also create a new correction layer to add a tone curve and get them darker. So you can play around with this. Once you have your character sheet done, you can play around with this until you get a more color scheme that looks more like what you had in mind, that looks less dull.
Here's another interesting question. Do you do all your story digitally or do you work in paper? What's your storytelling process?
Everything is digital for me. It's been a long time since I draw on paper, and I don't think I ever want to do that. So my process to create my comic, the first thing I do is to write down on a Word document. I write down the whole thing. Well, first I think it in my head, like I want this scene, this other scene, they connect like this, and then I start and I write down all the dialogues one by one. So I get like 20 pages for season 1 and so. And after that, I go chapter by chapter. I create the storyboard first with the dialogues and like stick figures like this to mark where each character is going to be, the kinds of expression they are going to have, etc. Then I sketch a bunch of pages. Then I finish a bunch of pages because I need to update my webtoon once a week. So I go in batches of pages.
Mm-hmm. And regarding color, do you think colored comics attract more people? What do you recommend?
Yes, on webtoon definitely. A lot of people were very happy that I started coloring my comic because, like I said before, I was getting a lot of please add color to the season 1. And I have to say that I expected to hate coloring my comic because that wasn't really my thing. I really like black and white and screen tones. But in the end, I found a method that I'm very happy with, and I'm having a lot of fun. So yes, I totally recommend that if you're going to make a webtoon, make it in color. But it is a bit of a problem if you want to print it later, if you want to have a paper version, because it's going to be more expensive to print because it's full color. But well, in the end, if people want to have your comic printed, they will have to pay for it. And otherwise, on Webtoon, it really works better if it has color. But there are many webtoons which are in black and white, which are very successful. So I'm not saying you can only be successful if you make it color. I'm just saying you have more chances.
Mm-hmm. And the following question is regarding art styles. Is it possible to have different types of art styles?
Of course. Yeah, it's possible depending on the kind of story that you're drawing or even the kind of character that you are drawing. If you are drawing like comedy, you can have a style for that, like more chibis and stuff like that. And if you are drawing something more serious, then your character might look more like adults, and this whole style, the whole atmosphere might be different. I don't think that's a problem. And in fact, many professional artists have different styles depending on what they are working. Like anime illustrators. Like I have an art book here from an illustrator. He's the one from Gurren Lagann and other animes, and he has different styles for each project, and that's cool.
Mm-hmm. And regarding hardware, what computer specs would you recommend to use Clip Studio Paint at the capacity you use?
I'm so sorry, I cannot answer that because actually it was my boyfriend who chose the components for my computer. Because I have no idea about that. I can only recommend tablets. Like for hardware, I can recommend the Wacom tablets, which are the very best. And also to have something like express key remote, or if your tablet comes with programmable keys, use those. And if it doesn't, then buy something like this.
Here's another question, but regarding software. Where did you learn how to use Clip Studio so well? Any resources you can share with us, please?
Actually, I don't really have a specific resource. It was through experimenting over time. I I switched it to Clip Studio Paint from Ila Studio, which was the previous software from Celsius, but it was only in Japanese. And I tried to do here the same stuff I did there, and for the most part, it was the same but better because it has more options. It keeps being updated. But it's true that I've learned little tricks from different artists over time. So I would recommend to go to the Clip Studio tips. There, many artists share their tricks. There is like a monthly competition with a specific theme. So if you are interested in the monthly theme, you are going to see a lot of tutorials from artists who share their knowledge. And there's always something to learn from everyone, even if it's the smallest detail, like the way they change the Lineart color or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. We're almost finishing our workshop from today, but we're running the last couple of questions. Can you talk about how you decide when you use a background versus when you just use a blank background or a color gradient?
Okay. Yes, when I have a big panel like this one, I would use a background because otherwise there's a lot of blank space. And if I want to show where this character is, like if it's at the beginning of the scene or it's an important moment, then I use backgrounds. But if it's a smaller panel, for example, if this panel was this small, I might have used a simple background like this. Let me show. I just pick a random color and using the same brush that I use for the background, I do it like this, and that's it. Then I have, this is a normal panel, not very special, but you don't have to add backgrounds to all your panels because that takes longer. Unless you have all the time in the world, which is also okay if you want to detail your comic so much. But otherwise, smaller panels or panels where you don't want to specifically show where the characters are, it's okay to have just a gradient or some texture.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. And one last question to wrap up your amazing presentation. What would you recommend to people? What tips would you give to anyone who's starting a webtoon?
A recommendation for people who want to start a webtoon?
Mm-hmm.
I would recommend to start with a short story. It's very important. The first time I started on Webtoon, I had a really, really long story in mind with a very detailed world with a lot of plot twists and such. and it didn't do well. Hardly anybody read it. It was called Revenge of the Queen, which is now on, I put it on hiatus. How do you say hiatus in English? Sorry.
You passed it.
So, okay. So in the end, I have to drop that story. And that's why I think starting with something small is smarter because you can make sure to finish it. Even if nobody cares, you can still finish it and say, see, I can't finish one project. Because otherwise, if you start with really long stories all the time, there's the chance that you will have to drop all of them. And in the end, you will not know if you are capable of finishing something. And the world will not know if you are capable of finishing something.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Inma, for this amazing presentation. We have all learned so much for everything that you have shared with us in the last hour. So, in the name of everybody who's been watching us, thank you so much. And before we go, don't forget to follow Inma and check out her webtoon, The Violinist and the Nerd. Stick around for our special giveaway. You will find the link in the chat and you can enter the giveaway throughout the commercial break. For more details, check out the giveaway link and let the moderator know if you have any questions. We'll also have many fun videos and tips and tricks during the commercial time. Our next session, Bring It to the Finish Stage by Revens, will start at 4 p.m. PDT. We will go over use of speech bubble, fonts and sound effects, and color workflow to finalize your panel. So regarding that, thanks so much Inma, and thank you all for staying with us. We'll see you in our next presentation.